I'm just imagining like Bodhi waking up and like, is actually like holding these figures in
In
front of
its
his
face.
face.
He's not saying anything.
Yeah. Am I dead?
Look,
No.
look at it.
Yeah.
Like I'm
You'll
doing
like it
now.
and you will love
Yeah.
it.
You're looking at me.
You're not you, you're me.
All righty.
I mean, he was going to join us for this episode, and but he's like, no, I'm not an 80s kid, though. I'm like, okay, fair.
You come from an 80s kid's loins, though.
Yeah.
Loins.
I appreciate that he was the one that told you. It's not like he wants to do it and you're like, you're not an 80s kid. You're not an 80s kid.
He will eventually.
You're like, he'll eventually become an 80s kid. I don't
No, he'll
think
eventually
so,
join
buddy.
us.
It's not how it works. It's not how science works.
Hey, Hal, calm down over there.
He'll eventually join us.
He's doing it so much his arms start spinning in a circle.
Zach will have rewritten what he likes.
It's the angle too. It's the angle going. It's the angle. Okay, never mind.
All righty, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the nostalgia-fueled mustache ride that is 80s Kids Unite. This is the podcast where a bunch of us 80s kids get together and talk about all the things that you may have forgotten about, we may have forgotten about. We revisit them.
Super uncomfortable, Zach.
Where Zach puts the loins and the groins of his favorite characters right up into the camera. You guys can't see it at home, but I'm sure you can smell it or imagine what it's like. It's very disturbing. But anyway, every week we do a deep dive into these topics from our childhood, brought to us directly from our patrons, from our various Patreon feeds. This is a combination of ultimately, what is it, like 4 different shows coming together. We've got $2 late fee. We've got Podcasting After Dark, TV Obscura, and Territory Marks joining. Every one of those podcast mentions takes you on a journey back. And whether you were brought here from any one of those or all of those, we welcome you. We thank you for listening. And we hope that this episode brings you a little bit of nostalgic joy, as I'm sure it will for us. Or we'll just talk about Zach's trauma, because that's typically what we do. And then we get into it. So, I'm Dustin. With me today, I've got Zach, who's in every single podcast you've ever listened to that's retro. I've got Corey and Diallo, and the 4 of us are going to sort of hash out today's topic, which is the DC Superpowers toy line from Kenner. Was it originally from Kenner, guys?
Yeah,
sure
was.
Originally from Kenner. And as and this topic was suggested by our number 1 patron, David Ullman. David, thank you. Woo! As always, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving, and only you. Everyone else, I hope you have an okay Thanksgiving.
Not as good as David's.
Not as good as David. David, this is a weird thing where we created it. David Ullman's Thanksgiving is going to be the best Thanksgiving. But as the odd man out here, this topic came into the 80s kid mainstream phone line, the hotline, and I was like, I really didn't have these characters. I'm obviously familiar with the DC Super, the Super Friends, the line of heroes. But I'm like, I'm just a little unfamiliar. Now, these 3 gentlemen with me today all have specific stories, memories, adventures. Zach you can't see this. Zach has shown like 95 different toy lines, every comic book that he owns. He's just waving them by the camera.
This is like the happiest Zach's ever been.
Yeah, it's
ever. Like he's never been happy.
Yeah.
So
There's
quiet,
a smile on his face, and he hasn't said a word, which is it's like eerie. It's very strange. I guess he wants us to name them or something. I don't know. Like, but also like McDonald's toy. You're just throwing up every
Mac
toy
the
that you
Knife.
own is just laid out on this desk in front of you, apparently.
Well, we used to have a show on $2 late fees Patreon called "Why Does Zach Own This?" And this is like, here's the culmination of why does Zach own all this random stuff.
Well, that's exciting. So everybody, yeah. So anyone who knows anything about that show, it's basically me being like, Zach, why do you own this? Why the hell do you own this? Now, today we can sort of understand why you might own these things, but
True.
it does seem like literally thousands of toys are being passed in front of the camera. Is every toy you own on the desk? I guess.
No. This is just a box, a box that traveled with me for decades, though. A collection of toys that are near and dear to my heart that I've since passed down to my son, Bodhi.
Zach, I have noticed that there is a theme. You might not have noticed, but every single toy that you've held up, the paint has been removed from their noses. Every single one of them.
Except for Martian Manhunter. And there's a reason for
design.
that. Because I've actually talked about the Superpower line on a either $2 late fee or podcasting after dark or both.
Nope. Not on $2 late fee.
I did because I said I used them as my wrestlers.
I remember every episode in photographic memory. No, I have no idea.
You know what? It might have been.
No idea.
It might have been territory marks. Might have been territory marks. My love of wrestling and my lack of love of the wrestling figures, and I use the superpower figures for my wrestlers. So I will put tape on their wrists, and they would beat each other up. And exactly. No, that was safe for my brother. And I think the reason why they've all lost the paint on their noses is because they were battling all the time.
Of course. Hawkman.
Well, thank you for bringing all of it. It is like being every episode of this show is like being at show and tell.
It is. I was thinking the same thing.
It really is, because it's, like a show and tell that we wish we had. Because really, sometimes kids would bring in things like, oh, it's science, or like, who cares, right? But if every show and tell was just like, I'm bringing in my favorite toy, then we would have enough show and tells to power a city or something like that. Before we get into this, guys, I think we do need to clear the air on something that happened offline, just so we're all cool, just so we're all everyone's cool. Now, Diallo had texted one of the most amazing toy commercials of this particular line that we're going to talk about today, and we were all like, "Wow, it really was like a time machine. It really just took me back. I was like, I absolutely remember this. I remembered this, but like right before the commercial started, it was like the last like 3 seconds of this this chocolate milk situation commercial as well. But it's like when a memory gets activated, and I think all of us on this text thread were like, wow. And then about I don't know, I guess not a full day had gone by, but some hours had gone by, and Zach was like, check out this commercial. This is awesome.
I sent 2 of them, by the way.
Okay. He sent 2, but one of them was the one that Diallo had sent. And it caused a little bit of a rift, like in the space-time continuum because there was some confusion where Zach was like, I didn't send. What do you mean? I can't find it. And Diallo was like, I just sent it. We were all like, wow, yeah, like we. So I just wanted to, if you guys had anything you wanted to say about that now before we get in, I don't want this to hang over us. I don't want there to be any weird, subtext or hurt feelings, because Diallo said he felt a little invisible, and I just don't want you to feel that way.
No, I mean, I struggle with that anyway, so it just was like confirmation that it's like when I say something, it's like no one notices, but then the person next to me will say the same thing, and it's like, that was the most brilliant thing I've ever heard. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that. So when I find a new therapist, I'll talk about it and dissect that, and just kind of see how I feel.
Do you not have a therapist now because your therapist was also ignoring you? Like, you felt like you'd bring this, you show the commercial to your therapist, and they were like, I don't care about that. And then Zach came in and showed the commercial to your therapist and was like, this is amazing.
They definitely didn't listen to me. Put it that way.
Well, no,
Diallo did clarify something for me today, which was the Alien toy commercial. I had seen before online, like on Instagram or something, but I thought it was like, I don't know. I thought like it was like a new commercial, but then they shot it retroly or something, because my mind couldn't grasp that like they would actually have an alien toy. I guess I could understand that they would have an alien toy from the movie Alien, but the fact that they literally market it to like 10-year-olds, like, so I guess it was not always an 80s thing where you take a rated R movie, a hard R, and market it towards kids.
Yeah, I mean that was the tail because I was like 79 when
Yeah.
that commercial was, and that's right around that time. But yeah, it was like the tail end. That's when I personally remember that starting was then.
Okay.
Because like I think so because like for everyone listening, I was like I've been working the last couple of days, and I have like this whole setup where I'm looking at computer, like I have a screen and I have YouTube playing, and I just kind of stumbled across like these videos of like cartoons, and so I was like, oh, I'll have this running in the background while I'm working, and whatever, and then they started showing these old commercials, and then I was like taking videos of them and sending them to these guys, and then except for Zach, and then so um but yeah, they had that one, they had the Alien one, and then that reminded me that they had like Jaws, because I remember playing that as a kid, and Alligator from the 1980 movie.
Yeah, that blew
Yeah.
my mind with Robert Forster. We covered that on Podcasting After Dark. And literally in that movie, like a 6 or 7-year-old boy gets shoved into the pool and screaming because he can see the alligator in it and he gets eaten whole. And yet they still market a toy towards kids.
Yeah. And it's strange because those movies were definitely a part of like pop culture, but
Yeah.
we couldn't, like, I never saw any of them. Well, I maybe saw Jaws, like, because they showed it on TV. But I didn't see, I don't think I've ever seen Alligator. And
It's good. You should. It's
yeah,
really fun.
and then Alien I didn't see till I was like teenager, after like right around when Aliens came out. But then but it was just like we all knew what it was, and you know, people had the figures, and I don't know, it's just life.
Just life. Well, I bring those commercials not to sow the discord of the waters of the 80s Kids Unite, but rather that we started this as a live panel, and when we were doing it as a live panel, we would show commercials to the audience and then kind of have that feeling wash over everybody and then kind of dive into it. So I do feel like both of these commercials are just amazing examples of that time period, and anybody in the audience can kind of hear them, or if we do the video, you can see them, and immediately get taken back there. It is that instant thing of like what kind of fuels all of our podcasts, on an individual level. It's this feeling of nostalgia, and those memories of like, oh wow, I remember watching this, wanting this. So both commercials, even though we got one commercial twice from both of you in a span of less than 10 hours, the second commercial too, they really are that you're like, wow, like do you guys remember, those running all the time? Because I certainly do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I remember the hell out of that commercial. The first time I watched it, the Diallo one, and the second one that Zach sent. I remember both of those.
Well, I
Yeah.
would say too that I remember them so well that I saved my UPC points or whatever they were on the back of the packaging to send away for that Steppenwolf figure. There was a mail away. They did mail away figures back in the day.
Yeah.
And
That's how I got my Emperor figure in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, the Emperor figure. I think one of the characters, he's armless now, but because he's definitely seen a better day.
That's how I got my Duke character, Duke, and Cobra Commander.
The hooded Cobra Commander?
No, it was the silver one. But
Okay.
because I don't think that came out in that first line, that first wave. And then
that was
also,
a mail-in one.
Also, Boba Fett, which is that's a pretty common one for people. But
Yeah, that's like probably the most famous mail away figure out there.
Yeah.
That's
there were
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. Boba Fett. Where?
That's how I lost my virginity. Mail order bride. They were having a
mail order
special.
Boba Fett.
I had to send in a lot of UPCs. I think it was
many
just
things could be true.
6. But then I wasn't really old enough to, stay married or whatever. But yeah. Cool. Not to. I think I cut somebody off here.
No. I was gonna say more about the love of mailing in things and getting that figure, but yours takes the cake.
You guys didn't do that? Oh, weird. Okay. Must be a New Jersey thing, I think.
Yeah, must be an East Coast thing.
Get on that turnpike, baby.
Well, you get on that turnpike and you
I will
get
say
that.
though, like the superpower toy line, I know Corey's going to go into it in a minute, but superpower toy line came out at the same time or around the same time as the Marvel Secret Wars toy line.
Exactly at
And
the same
so,
time.
yeah, so I have those as well. They're in a different box because I kind of try to keep my DC and Marvel characters separate. But that was for me, that was like the winter of 84 when I moved to California, getting those as a Christmas gift. And at the time, also Hanukkah, because we were celebrating both. And so many of those Marvel and Secret, yeah, you guys are both
Corey.
Corey's face is
My
like,
mom,
what?
my
This
mom
is
was,
like when you're watching a show and like somebody retcons their their past.
yeah, my
This
mom
is
was married to a Jewish guy at the time. So
Oh, okay. Wait, you had another stepdad? How many stepdads did you have?
technically 3.
My 3 stepdads.
Wow. One was annulled, and then there were 2 after that.
Okay. Wow.
Those,
How long have we known each other for? This is the first time I've
Oh,
ever
really?
learned
I
this.
never brought that up.
My Jewish stepdad
My Jewish stepdad.
in 84, 40 years ago.
It's on TLC. It's a new
That's
show.
a sitcom, My Jewish Stepdad.
So should we get into that a little more? So you're
Let's
No.
we have a lot
just-
to unpack.
I mean, I know there are a lot of dads, but like how many and how
What do they do?
What's
Who's your daddy? What does he do?
What is your daddy? But like how many years are we talking about? What kind of span are we talking
How
Oh,
long were you
gosh.
Jewish?
For about a year and a half, maybe.
That's a long time to be Jewish. Did you
What-
did you like Hanukkah better than because it was 8
well,
crazy
look,
nights?
I got presents every single night, and then I
Yeah.
got more presents on Christmas Day. So yeah, I liked Hanukkah and Christmas. I love being Jewish and Christian. Christian, yes.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. No, my mom was, my parents got divorced when I don't know, was 3 or 4 years old, maybe. And then she dated a piano tuner guy, the Dan the Piano Man.
Right. The who introduced you to Bob Seger.
Yeah.
Right. They got engaged, and then they got married, and then they got annulled. I think they got it annulled like a month after.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then she started seeing my stepdad Gary at the time, who was living in Michigan. He's the one that got a job out here in California and moved us out here.
And he's Jewish?
Yes, he is. My mom
Okay.
converted. My mom took all the classes and everything, and
Wow,
like
okay.
George Costanza did. So
Okay.
so to this day, she's like, "No, I'm Jewish. I'm Jewish. Yes." So yeah, then they got divorced about a year or so after we moved out here. Next door neighbor was my stepdad Mike, and the rest is history.
Wait, your stepdad Mike was your next door neighbor?
Yeah.
So they met while she was
He-
dating the Jew.
Well, she was
Gary.
unpacking. I don't think they ever met. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah. And he offered to help her move. He's like, "Hey, can I help you
boy.
move?" And she's like, "Sure, be back here tomorrow at 5. That's when I'm gonna be loading up the truck." And he didn't show up. And so basically, he showed up like the next day, and she's like, "It's too late. I already, I don't need your help." And he's like, "Well, how about I take you out to dinner or something like that? Make it up to you."
It sounds like
Wow.
an 80s sitcom, actually, this whole
Yeah.
story.
I mean, there's definitely
And/or movie.
elements. Yep.
Yeah.
There's elements.
Directed
So
by Scorsese.
Interesting.
if you want to know more about all that, sign up to either $2 late fees Patreon at patreon.com/$2 late fee or patreon.com/podcasting after dark for more
Are
details.
we
on my
launching a new
childhood.
segment called My Three Stepdads? Because
Sure, if you want.
that could be interesting. But okay, so your mom still celebrates Hanukkah? Just want to get this out. I don't know.
No, definitely not.
Oh. So she's not. All right.
No.
Wow.
She doesn't go to temple.
No, absolutely.
I
not.
mean,
said it with a lot of disgust, but, yeah.
because it's so selective. It's like,
Yeah, right.
a holiday comes up and suddenly she's celebrating. I'm like, "Mom, you don't go to service. You don't go to you don't do Shabbat on Friday. Come on.
Yeah.
Like
She
I
means-
know,
she's
I know
like,
the
"You mean
prayers better than
Shabbat?
she did. Yeah.
Shabbat?
Oh, no, I don't
Yeah.
bowl on Shabbos. No, Mom, that's a movie. That's a movie. You're not living in a movie. No, I'm the dude. You're not the dude, Mom. You're not the
That is
dude.
amazing. All right. And
What's
okay, so
your
my
toys? I have photos of my toys when I was. Anyways, we'll get into that.
the
Yeah,
all right. Well, the only other question I guess I have is, and which stepdad threw out your toys?
Mike.
Mike, the one that didn't show up to move.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Because we moved
Because
seven
he,
times. We moved
oh,
7 times over the span of
didn't
from
know that either.
80, 80
7 times.
86 to 94. No, 86 to 91. We moved
All
seven
right.
times.
Well, I know you guys tuned in to hear about DC superpowers, but listen, it's
This is
really
far more interesting.
this is
I
way
know.
more interesting.
I'm like, no, I feel I'm letting go of my grudge against Zach after hearing
Yeah,
all of
right.
this.
So much moving and trauma and groundlessness.
No wonder he's
And
so eager to please, and he
is
didn't. He just was like, I saw the video, even though he didn't, because
right,
he was just trying to make me feel
Yeah.
right.
included.
Scene. I was trying to make you feel
Yeah, you were
seen,
trying to make me
Diallo.
feel seen, and I definitely acknowledge that, based on the
Yeah,
uncertainty that you
there's
probably
the Green Lantern.
experienced,
I will
that was
narrate.
like a survival mechanism for you. And
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
absolutely a survival mechanism. I think we can
Yeah.
all be. I mean, there's a psychiatrist out there that has enough information that can diagnose Zach at this point and
Yeah.
break it all down. And I think we can do it. I mean, we've already done it multiple times within our own
Yeah.
family. I mean, if anyone wants
It
to know, my
is.
parents got a divorce when I was 4, but I'm fine. I turned out fine.
I turned
he's
out
like,
fine
I'm fine.
too.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Last question. Do you have like any step siblings that we don't know about or that you don't know about? Do you think? Do you think that
No, I just have my half brother Sean.
okay.
That's
Sean. I haven't
Yep.
seen Sean in forever.
same.
Oh.
And we'd like to keep it that way. So Sean, if you're listening,
If you're listening, stay away.
Stay away, get away. This is the
That's
one episode he
amazing.
actually tunes into.
Yeah.
I like
It's like,
DC
oh,
superpowers.
I
DC,
love
yeah.
DC superheroes.
They're my
Oh my
favorite.
God. Oh my God. That's so funny. All right. All right. Well, I feel good about where we're at. Maybe
Well, good.
maybe we can start the processing
Oh,
for Zach's
boy, oh,
trauma
boy.
a little bit. We'll just start it. We'll press that button here. But Corey, you want to give us some background on this toy line and what?
Sure. Why not?
Not
Why
anymore.
not, guys?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I kind of took this from the wiki and added my own words to it and moved things around. But here we go. Do you like to hear about it? Here we go. 1984, DC Comics awarded the master toy license of their characters to Kenner. The team at Kenner devised hidden mechanisms within the figures that would trigger an action when their legs or arms were squeezed. This emphasis on each character's superpower led to the naming of the line the Superpowers Collection. Each toy in the first 2 series were packaged with a mini comic featuring that character. They also included a cutout collector's card on the back of each package. With the Apocalyptian New Gods characters like Darkseid selected as antagonists for the line, comic creator Jack Kirby received some of the only royalties of his long career for redesigning his characters for Kenner. Artist George Perez also received royalties for designing. Artist George Perez also received royalties for his design of Cyborg and redesign of Lex Luthor. Most of the other designs, such as the packaging artwork, were based on Jose Luis Garcia Lopez's classic DC style guides. In all, 3 series of figures and accessories were released from 1984 to 1986 before the line was abruptly canceled in February 1986. 2 toys pictured on the back of the third wave packages were never produced: the all-terrain Trapper vehicle and the Darkseid Tower of Darkness playset. McFarlane Toys acquired the license in 2020 and has been releasing new versions of the DC Superpowers toys since 2022. And I believe you can get them online or at Walmart. I don't think they're like a Walmart exclusive, but you can kind of basically find them at Walmart. So yeah, there you go. It's a little backstory on that.
And the rumor is that the Darkseid playset is going to be coming out.
I saw that. Yeah, I've seen pictures of it.
And if you start playing and you sync it up to Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, just stop playing when that's really interesting. We are in the 40-year anniversary of this toy line, and that's not even by design. So
No, that's really
congrats
cool.
to all of you guys because that's really wild. And you mentioned that Kenner that everything had sort of an action, and hence you see a lot of these every figure being marketed as the power action insert the blank.
Yeah, and I think that's what's cool about the line is not every figure had the same action. So Zach's like squeezing the legs of Green Arrow and his arms move. He has like a bow shooting action. Yep, and then the Flash, he squeezes arms and his legs run. So you got to imagine that the tooling on these had to have been pretty extensive because they're not just like you think about it, a GI Joe has the same features. Like every single one of them do, unless you have some sort of specialty one.
Right.
But like they all have the same features, so you can kind of just keep the same tooling. But for these, as Batman is fisting Green Arrow in the back.
You have failed this city.
But like those are two separate different toolings right there. So
Yeah.
I imagine that this was not a cheap line to produce.
They were really well made. I mean, like I said, I had almost the entire first wave, quite a few from the second wave. I had some of the ships. I had Lex Luthor's ship. Like I said, also the Marvel Secret Wars figures came out the same year, so they were competing against each other who was cooler. I preferred those because they didn't have like the action. I kind of liked just the posability versus the action in the figures. But man, they were really well made. I mean, and down to like little details. There's this one character I'm holding up right now. You guys can help me out with his name.
The Parademon.
Yeah, Parademon. He looks like a kind of like a green mantis, but his little arms move as well. Like the little claws that he has actually have a separate way of moving, and I don't know, that's really cool. Like little details like that. Or you could take the wings off of Hawkman if you wanted to like de-wing him, or all the accessories that came with them at the time, probably one of the most detailed figure lines to come out.
Yeah, and I feel like nowadays, like that Parademon is technically like a little bit bigger. And I remember Darkseid being a little bit bigger. Like I feel like they would charge you more for those now. They would be the deluxe action figures or something like that, and cost like, extra. But back then it was just they were all the same price and you got what you got. And they were pretty damn amazing, including a comic book.
I feel like they made them to scale because you look at like, Flash and Hawkman. Flash is like, almost an inch shorter than Hawkman. That's unheard of nowadays. Nowadays they just make them all 6 inches or all 4 inches or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
That's what she said.
But
that's what he wishes.
4 inches. 4 inches.
That's average, isn't it? That's average, right?
You make them all 4 inches. All right.
Those figures were I want to say I don't want revolutionary in a way, like yeah, like up until I mean this whole line is like it's like for like I guess the age I was at, it was the shift from like the way things used to be to like not just with the line but just like the way the comics were represented at that time. It was just like a whole new different like vibe. Because like Mego was what was ruled before that with like the 8-inch, was it 8-inch dolls?
Yes.
Yeah. And so even like the Star Wars figures and GI Joe figures, but then the superpowers ones, just I don't know, they were like a lot more lively and a lot more sculpted, and yeah, so they definitely I actually can't stand, I never could stand the Marvel the Secret Wars ones. I just thought that they were stiff. The way their legs were like bow leg, and I always like as I'm older, I kind of, and I'm pretty sure what happened was they knew that superpowers thing was coming, and they like jumped on it and like pushed something out because they both can't. I actually feel like superpowers. Secret Wars might have come out before, like it might have hit the market before, but I think it was an afterthought. And both of those, I think, were based on, at least Superpowers, the Secret Wars was based on like a comic book that they were trying to, market to people.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, but it definitely was it was like a new wave of just like doing things. And all the way up until the 90s, it was like the mode until we got into our extreme era.
Yeah,
So
And
because
Diallo, to your point, like the Marvel ones had you can only just move their arms and their legs, whereas the DC ones you can move their elbows and their knees. And then
mhm.
yeah,
like all
yeah,
that was special packaged were kind of like those shields that had
Yeah,
the
like holograms or
lenticular
something or
shield
something.
things. And
Yeah.
like even like Wolverine, like his claws, you had to like it was a separate plastic piece that you had to
yeah.
put on his fist. Whereas I feel like if Kenner produced those, they would have actually made the claws come out of Wolverine's hands. There was a quality to the DC Superpowers toys. I now don't get me wrong, I loved the Secret Wars, the Marvel ones. I love them because I was kind of more of a Marvel kid growing up. But I even back then I noted the quality was definitely there with the superpower toys.
Mhm.
Well, and then Toy Wiz, so Kenner had the toy line for a little bit, but then Toy Wiz took over and then like released they didn't have the action to them. Like I'm holding up a Riddler figure who's very basic. I mean, he's cool looking, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't have like any sort of action.
No
And I
power
don't
action?
no power action. That was Toy Wiz. And Toy Wiz
Oh,
ended up getting like the DC and Marvel line because eventually they would release the Wolverine with the extendable claws or whatever.
Yeah,
But
that actually went into his arm and everything.
yeah, but
Yeah.
Kenner was on fire. Like this was the beginning of Kenner doing, I think Mask was coming out pretty soon after this, and they would have the little catalog that would come in the toys of like what's coming soon
the
from
movie
Kenner.
starring Eric Stoltz for anybody who's
Yes.
confused.
Yeah. Rocky Dolan's, I think.
Rocky Dennis.
Dennis, yeah, not Rocky. Yeah, no relation to the
Dolan's.
monkeys. Mickey Dolenz and Rocky Dennis had a love child.
Oh
Uh,
God.
yeah, the Mask figures. Yeah, they had a Sam Elliott one. It said Mustache Rise for $5.
Well, so I'm sure that like the answer, I'm sure I'm saying what the answer is, but did they have Kenner had more money and more power because of the Star Wars license, right? That propelled them forward in the early 80s, and they used that money to invest back into like these superpowers toys and
Must
everything
have been, but then that didn't that company go out of business or get absorbed by
by
Hasbro?
Hasbro. Yeah. Well,
Who
nothing
did
lasts forever.
the Secret Wars toys?
Good question.
Yeah, keep talking. I'll look it up.
Is that Galoob or something? LJN?
Oh, I
Like
think
a
LJN
lube.
might have, but
Most things we talk about are LJN. Guys, listen to our favorite retro video game episode where every
oh, it's Mattel.
video
Mattel.
game
Mattel. Yeah, it was
Oh, it's
Mattel.
Mattel.
tell.
Oh yeah, because Mattel has released a line of Secret Wars inspired figures now. So like new versions of them are coming out. But anyways, I know that you guys mentioned the Superpowers cartoon, and then there was a 16 episode series that Legendary Superpowers show, which was based on this toy line. Like it introduced Samurai. Well, Samurai was in the original.
Yeah, Samurai was already on. Yeah.
But they had Firestorm, who was like pretty cocky. And then obviously introduced Darkseid and Calabac, who was his nephew or something, right? Wasn't that part of the storyline? Anyways,
Calabac, yeah,
yeah,
he's his son or
son,
nephew, son, I think.
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, like that cartoon was short-lived, but I remember I got excited for it. Anything that would have a cartoon around the toy, I got excited for. And these toys are great. I mean, like I said, I used them for all sorts of other things, and you know, you could
Well,
you could pop
you have
pop
to
their arms.
elaborate that on
Yeah,
Zach. You
yeah.
can't just leave that hanging, buddy. What did
Well,
you
no,
use them
like
for?
I used
I
them
used
for
to pop them.
I used them for my wrestling figures because the playability was better. So I renamed some of the characters, and they became the wrestling figures that I always wanted. But you could also pop their arms off too. You could like interchange as well.
Don't do it, Zach. Don't do it. Don't
I'm
do
not
it.
gonna do it now because they'll break because the plastic's so brittle. I actually broke one while I was talking, then it popped back on. It's like, oh, thank God it's not broken. But yeah, no, they were lots of fun. I love the Superpower line.
Now, Dustin, I mean, because one of the things that David Allman wants us to do is like pick our favorite. So the three of us have it, and you chose to
I
MC.
follow
And
everything David Ullman does.
if he
David
tells me to
Ullman's
jump off a
wish
cliff,
is my command. David, that's what we do. That's the service we offer on Patreon, guys. It's
yeah,
pretty much you join our Patreon. You just tell us what to do. We'll just do it.
that's
But I
right.
cut you off. Please continue with your question.
Well, no. So did you have you? So I'm assuming you didn't have any of these, but you were obviously aware of their existence. I mean, did you read comics much when you were a kid?
Yes. So I was a Marvel comic reader primarily.
Me too.
I just didn't it didn't resonate with the DC line so much. And I think that sort of fed into it. But all that to say, I didn't have the Marvel line of toys either. So, but I feel like it wasn't a kind of like your responsibility as an 80s kid to like everyone had to have an Incredible Hulk. I feel like, right, we just all had one. I don't know why. Like you're just like, yeah, I got Incredible Hulk. So
Yeah.
I feel like he had an appearance, but no, I this line I was aware of. Obviously, the commercials resonated, but I didn't have them. The Flash to me is the one that stands out the most. I think. I don't know if he was. I mean, he was extremely popular in my little circle of friends. You'd always see the Flash and the fast leg action. Something about that.
He's got like a
So
cool, he's got all the accessories. He's got the Mercury or the wings on
yes,
his ears and, a little lightning bolt on his
yeah.
thing on his
It's a
boots.
great
And
figure. So I think my brother had that one, and I just didn't. Um, he's just got the groin right
It's his
in
Peen.
peen.
He's
the
got his
camera.
peen.
It's just right in the
It is
He's
booty,
got
the
buttocks.
booty, the
his tight
indention.
booty.
Very
I mean, they
distracting.
did
I'm
paid
not
a lot
gonna.
of attention to the details on these
I mean,
guys.
he's a runner, so
They did right. His glutes are defined.
yeah.
But anyway, all that to say, I did not own any of these, so it wouldn't be fair for me to say, oh, this
Did
is my favorite.
did your
Uh,
brother have them? Did Lance
is
have them?
well, I think he had the Flash.
Okay. Oh,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure.
Okay.
Um, but same thing with him. It's like we were not really reading DC and hanging out in that DC world. And I think a lot of that too. I don't know if you guys have ever talked about this, but I think like Marvel to me is just more fun from a personality perspective because when you look at a lot of the DC characters, even today, the reason they couldn't get the movies right for so long is like the comic relief was always just so bad. Like it would always just be like, oh, here's the Flash gonna say some funny lines. Whereas like
I disagree.
you think that Marvel is less funny than DC.
I don't know if it's about being funny or not. I just feel like, yeah, I mean, it's just like a whole different discussion.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah.
we certainly won't devote that much time to it, but just from the perspective of, like Spider-Man was like the, kind of the wisecracking cool guy. Like there I never resonated with any of that in DC. I didn't see, every like Superman is he's kind of boring, Batman is broken and intense. And the line goes very, very far. But is there any character, just talking off the top here of the head, of the top of the dome, are there any of these characters in the toy line that are kind of like the sarcastic, wisecracking character that you guys know
In
of?
I don't know about in the line. I mean, there were characters around that time, maybe like a few years later that really got a lot more popular, but I mean, I don't know if they ever were like pop culture popular, but
Hmm.
like the especially it's like in 87, I think it was when Justice League came out. That was known for being like comical, but actually really good. And there's a couple iconic moments like Guy Gardner, Green
I'm
Lantern.
glad you brought up Guy Gardner. I
Yeah.
feel like he's got the most personality in the DC universe.
Yeah, like Booster
Guy Gardner.
Gold and Blue
Hmm.
Beetle. It was like actually really funny like book. Batman punched Guy Gardner out like one punch. That was like a big deal. Like it was actually that is actually, but I can see how like it was like comic book famous, but I can see like it wasn't pop culture famous. So I can see that,
Yeah. Okay. The closest thing I can think of for me personally is the Teen Titans, and not to digress, but
Hmm
Beast Boy, and just like characters sort of in that world, because they are younger, and you're still getting that kind of making their way in the world today while
Even
you're
like
becoming
even then
superheroes.
they weren't that was like deadly serious when it first came out. That was
Yeah,
not
no,
comedic at all. Yeah, so yeah, I don't
no,
know.
and what
Yeah.
that is today is so different than what it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think Dustin, to what the point you're making
Can you turn
is
that
like,
down?
we all know that like
Yes.
Wolverine says bub, and that he's like a firecracker, and you don't want to mess with him. Like I feel like his personality is as important as his claws and his costume and everything like that. We all know
Absolutely.
Spider-Man's a kid, and he's kind of he cracks wise because he's actually scared, and that's like kind of relatable and everything. And similar to you, Dustin, I actually was not a big DC fan growing up as a kid. I was much more of a Marvel kid, and everything. But as I've gotten older, I've actually gravitated more towards DC characters
Mm.
because of how like iconic they are. And when as a kid, I wanted someone that was sort of representing me, like Spider-Man or something
Yeah.
or whatever. But as I've gotten older, I appreciate Superman. I appreciate people that are like characters that are larger than life and like sort of provide this beacon. And I feel like DC does that right. And it's sort of always done that correctly.
Well,
I had this whole like when I was doing a blog and writing about that stuff, I actually was like I think what happened was that the world got more cynical. And as that happened, DC's characters were what you said. They were, I mean, because they were the ones that were carrying the whole thing for the first, however many 40 years or whatever, 35 years, I think, until Marvel came on the scene. Marvel, like I personally like love both. The distinction that never was made in my head when I was collecting. I knew that they were different companies, but
mm-hmm.
I just was getting comic books. I didn't really, I don't, I do think that I kind of like resonate and prefer kind of DC a little bit more on a whole as a universe, but I have way more X-Men comics than anything else, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I just feel like the world got more cynical and the DC characters are more iconic. They're like gods. And I also think that that's why Batman is the most popular one because he's the one that isn't a god. He's the closest thing to a Marvel character than any of the other ones are. I mean, the Justice League literally is just like the Greek pantheon, you know. So
Right. Right.
I think that that's what it's like they're a little less relatable in that way. And it was really and whenever they try to make them more relatable, that it falls apart. That's why that was the kind of I think the problem with a lot of the DC movies. They couldn't really figure out like, you know. So that's my interpretation of it. But again, I love both, so I don't have really like, I've never been like a Marvel fanboy or a DC fan guy. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm getting I have a stack of Spider-Man and I have like Justice League and I had like my Superman book and then I had my X-Men, whatever. I just was getting stuff. So
I wonder too, like where I grew up, there everything was like versus something else. One thing had to be better than the other. You couldn't just like both. So, it was like you had to like DC or Marvel, and if you like DC, then you had to justify it. Where I was going to school, which I think is terrible because like if you like something, that's all that matters. And when this toy line came out, it was like it was something that no one else I knew had these toys. Like I was the only one in my area. And so everyone had GI Joes and Transformers. That was it. For some reason, DC and Marvel characters were not very popular with amongst my friends. So for me, it was like I was in my own little bubble.
Yeah. Having a GoBot could get you killed, right?
Well, GoBots never even
I
got
was just
brought
about
up.
to say, yeah.
But I will say
Yeah.
Firestorm. I feel like Firestorm in the short-lived Legendary Superpowers cartoon was kind of like their
The
Spider-Man. Like he was,
Spider-Man, yeah.
yeah, he
They
was
were
like a
they were
younger
pushing
character.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
pushed him as like when that season started, they were like, "Oh, Firestorm," and there's a big push in the comic books. I can't remember if Cyborg was the same season or if it was like he came after in
He
that
was.
show.
He was the same in the cartoon, and that was a
Yeah.
figure that was my apparently that's one of the holy grail superpower figures because it was so hard to find
Hmm.
the cyborg figure, and he came with interchangeable hands. Very cool looking figure.
I've
Had
had
that.
a vendetta against Cyborg in the Justice League ever since
Oh,
1984.
oh
Mm.
well, I think he came out in like 85 or 86, but
It always drives me nuts. Yeah.
but Corey was mentioning how they kind of reimagined some of the iconic villains like Lex Luthor looks super jacked up and he came with like a cool armor piece
Yeah.
and then of course what's his name
Yeah.
Brainiac was like a big metallic looking all I remember him from was the Superpowers cartoon or the Super Friends cartoon where he just was like a dude but then the Superpowers line came out and he was like this cyborg robot and he was
Yeah, he was
very
cool
cool
as
looking.
hell, that toy. I love that toy as a kid. I never owned
Mhm.
it, but I always was like, oh man, I want that. That's really awesome. Because I
Yeah.
always gravitated more towards sci-fi stuff. Like, so here's the thing. The only superpowers toys I had were hand-me-downs, or I had this a secondhand toy store in my neighborhood. So I actually bought them from there. So I actually never had any of the comics that came with them. I never had the packaging. I never owned any of them new because I would gravitate more towards G.I. Joe, Star Wars, Centurions, Mask, like that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, I thought he was super, super cool. But real quick, kind of, I was looking at who my pick was, who my pick's going to be. And he has like a cloth cape. So there's
Yeah.
also like these toys also
Mhm.
came with like soft goods, you know? So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's, and I'm just knowing what I know now about toy production and stuff. Like I'm just blown away by the quality and play factor that they actually give you with these toys that as a kid didn't mean anything to me, but as an adult I'm like, that's impressive as hell.
Yeah, that actually factors into my pick for my favorite figure too, was the accessories that came with said figure were, in my opinion, leaps and bounds above other like superhero related figures at that time.
And they wouldn't try to be like, we have to give everybody the same amount of accessories. Like if the Flash doesn't come with accessories, it's because the Flash doesn't need them. You know what I mean? He doesn't have a cape because the Flash doesn't have a cape.
He came
Whereas
what
I
his
think with the
character
like
came.
what now?
His character came with like what he did.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and then they'd all be the same price, but like one character would sort of come with more stuff, you know?
Right.
That's wild when you think about it, especially nowadays when everything is so like streamlined and yeah, like that character, Green Arrow, Zach would probably be like a deluxe figure now and cost more.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Well, that's all the time we have, guys. Thank you so much for listening to another amazing episode. These guys mentioned their picks. You're not going to hear what they are. Actually, so let's jump in, or just walk in, I guess. Diallo, take us back in time.
Yes. So, again, I'm a little older than you guys. So I was this is around that age where I was like, starting to be like a little too old to play with action figures like openly. So it was like on the tail end of like me like actually getting to play with those. So I had a couple of them, but I didn't get as many as I would have liked. I have three favorite superheroes, and I had two of the characters. I had Green Lantern and I had the Flash. And I, you know, I probably Shazam's my other one, but
I don't have
um,
Shazam. He's
Shazam.
a holy grail one too.
but
Shazam.
I probably. I mean, I think I like Green Lantern because he came with the lantern, right?
Yeah.
And so like, I like that. But I have I have like a better story to tell with the Flash. Um, so Flash forward a year later, and over in DC, they had Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline. And in issue number 8, very iconic, written by the great Marv Wolfman, he killed the Flash. And
Mm.
I was like, not devastated, but I was just, I mean, because I still to this day think it's like if you're gonna kill a character, that's the way to do it. Like he went out as a absolute total G, saved the universe. It was done really well. Apparently like a lot of people were upset by it. And Marv told me that they killed him because the sales were low, but and
Mm.
that was the reason why. But anyways, I was just like, oh man. So I had this figure, and I was still like, by that time, I was like, I was in high school. So I definitely wasn't allowed to play with toys, and it just was kind of sitting around. And so the Flash died, and so I remember I had like a little index card metal box, and I put him in the box,
Oh,
and I went into the backyard, and I buried him in the backyard. So,
You
um,
talked about that
Wow.
recently, I think on TV Obscura, maybe.
Man, I don't even remember I don't know if I've ever told that story. I think there's only, I mean, maybe I did. I know
Well,
there's one
I
other
think
person I know.
I don't know if it was about the Flash, but you basically said you buried yeah, it
Yeah.
was the Phoenix episode, and you talked about just burying a figure
Oh,
because the character died,
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, so somewhere in Northern California in someone's backyard, there may be, maybe 1,000, maybe 3,000 years from now, there may be a figure that's unearthed, and it's the Flash, and they'll be like, what is this? Because it'll be a nuclear wasteland by
That's
then. The radiation will just be wearing off by then. But yeah, that was it was kind of like it was sort of like too, because I remember, it was like I had like the last time that I was like I played with my toys, and I made it a big epic. So I had like all my G.I. Joes and all my Star Wars, and it was like a huge battle, and I got all these firecrackers and I blew everything up. And but that was like sort of like symbolic of me like burying my childhood, even though I'm sitting here with a Voltron figure. Uh,
well, no one killed Voltron, so that's acceptable.
yeah.
no, but look at the size of that thing.
Wow,
Look at
that
the
is,
size of that thing.
and it was blurred out like it was like, not suitable for TV or something.
Inappropriate. Yeah.
we can't get the
like,
copyright rights for
like
that.
really lewd toy that you had.
In my
Diallo, who was writing the Flash in the early 2000s when it was Wally West? It was a
It
really
was is it Peter David, I think. I think it was Peter David.
okay, and he went on to I think like run DC, like the head of DC or something like that. Um,
Uh did he? I can't remember.
I don't know if it was Peter David, but there was a great run of Wally. Like it
It
was like
was
12.
epic.
It was epic. It was great, and I loved it. And it was kind of like my first. I was working at Diamond Comics at the time. I think it was around 2005 or something. And it was like I was reading that entire run, and the thing I loved about it was the writer. I forgot his name. He made the Rogues Gallery. He like rebuilt them and everything like that.
Oh, Jeff Johns.
There you go,
Yeah, that's
Jeff
what you're talking
Johns.
about.
That
Yeah.
run.
The
And
Rogues Gallery. Yeah, that was amazing. Yeah.
and who is it? Is it Captain Cold? It's Captain Cold, right?
But yeah.
And I remember this one moment in that run where the whole city's like burning and Captain Cold and and the Flash, Wally West have to sort of work together. And the Flash Museum was on fire, and Captain Cold didn't give a shit until there was a statue of Barry Allen, and he put it out. And Wally West was like, he froze it to keep it from burning and sort of save it. And Wally West was like, what? Why did you do that? You hate the Flash? He was like, no, that was Barry Allen.
Mm.
He deserves respect. And I was
Yeah.
like, that was so cool. That was so freaking awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, The Flash, I used to read like the old school when I used to go to my friend's house and he had like a stack of like, Golden Age and Silver Age comics. And that's really my first introduction to comic books, really. And I used to read all these old school, even though it was like 1980 something, I didn't really realize that there were like current books out. So I was like reading these like 60s versions of The Flash and Green Lantern and Justice League and but yeah, and the book that I was thinking about was actually the run I was thinking about was Mark Waid in the 90s. It was like he's the one that came up with like Speed Force and all that
Okay, yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jeff Johns' run was amazing. Like he like revitalized the Rogues Gallery. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just I love the Flash. Still, still do. Shazam more though, but
Yeah.
still.
Oh, we know your love for Shazam.
But yeah, and then to reiterate, so the Flash toy itself has the action legs.
Yes.
Anything else notable about the toy?
It doesn't come with any
Yeah, that
accessories,
was
which is
it. It was
neat.
just
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
just like the legs. It was I think that's why like I had like a better story to tell with like the Flash, but I do think like the Green Lantern toy was like better because he had the lantern and my brother had Batman and Superman, and I think he had the Batmobile also.
Mm.
Yeah, so it was like that was I used to get to like play with toys still because my brother was getting them. He's much younger than me, so I got to extend that for a while longer. But yeah, but I really loved like I said, that line is amazing. I didn't like the cartoon. It was because I really liked that. It was like Challenge of the Super Friends being rerun for a while, and I could see that there was like a different style, like slightly different style of the animation. I just didn't like it. It was
Mhm.
like a little different, but I
Yeah.
did like the inclusion of like Darkseid and stuff. I
Yeah.
liked those elements, bringing in the New Gods stuff. Um, but I also didn't really like that cartoon.
And I have to tell you, I have to a point of contention. This is actually Mantis. It's not Parademon.
Oh,
It's Mantis. Mantis is was more like a bat-like character with wings, and he was orange and red. This is Mantis. Mantis is the green-looking bug robot.
interesting. I
Yeah,
He looks like Mr. Miracle's face.
it kind
Yeah.
of does. This is I have Mr. Miracle as well, but anyways.
Yeah. When you say point of contention, are you personally upset that Corey
no,
didn't
No,
it's
know
we.
that?
I called it Parademon earlier.
call it parody.
No,
I just
right.
want
That's
to point of
that's what I'm saying. But
clarification. Point of clarification.
Okay. You
Point of
said
clarification.
contention, like you didn't pass the test. You said parademon. I was gonna wait. This is Mantis.
I'm out, guys. See ya.
I'm out. Bye.
And when you were
We're just adding to more of Zach's origin story.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right. Keep it going. Keep going.
But when you were asking before, you genuinely didn't know which character it was.
Who, me?
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
you held it up and you're like, who is this? And then,
well, because I remember calling him Mantis, but I wasn't sure.
okay.
Then I had to
Copy.
look up like the back of the card of the.
Copy. So
Not
it
to
is
be confused with the Mantis TV show. With
What do
Carl
the
Lumley.
parademons look like though? Because
I thought they
I
looked-
was I was kind of thinking that was Mantis, but I was like, but also the parademons
They look like the flying monkeys from the Wizard of Oz. A little bit.
All right. Well, while
Okay.
Diallo's looking
Hold
up
on,
that one, Zach,
Yeah.
what's your pick?
My pick is based on the accessories mostly. I mean, I can't say it enough. I thought this toy line was really, really amazing, and I loved all the accessories that they came with. And like we said, not all of them did. This character in particular did. Like initially, I was going to go with Dr. Fate because I love Dr. Fate. I love his look. Same with Firestorm. But the Green Arrow is actually going to be the figure that I choose as my favorite figure in the Superpowers toy line. Green Arrow, aka Oliver Queen. He was the if you want to compare Marvel to DC, if Marvel has Hawkeye, DC has Green Arrow. They're not the same in any way, shape, or form, but they're both archers and they have that thing
they
going on
actually
there.
are they actually are kind of the same.
Okay, well, there you go. So
They're
but
like
I do, and
wisecracking
I
Han
love,
Solo types.
I do love Hawkeye a lot as well. And they never made a Hawkeye figure back in the day, but they did make a Green Arrow figure. He came with, and I don't have these accessories anymore, unfortunately, but he came with a bow and 2 arrows, and the 2 arrows actually fit in the back of his backpack.
That's so cool.
That he wears, which has the details of the arrows going around it as well. And then his action is a shooting action where you put the bow in one hand and you could actually like not the rubber, but the plastic would stretch long enough for you to like connect the to his finger to shoot the the arrow off. And it was just, you know, it wasn't totally practical, but it was really cool looking. And he's so authentic. That was the other thing I loved about these. They were so authentic to, they look like they're ripped right out of the comic book. And yeah, he had, you know, kind of a cool sculpt and shape to him. And that's why I like Green Arrow.
Offline, before we started recording, I had mentioned that two of my favorite like childhood like toy features. One was glow in the dark. It's always going to be glow in the dark. I love toys that glow in the dark. I also love clear plastic, like the Tron toys from back in the day. But my third favorite toy feature is when you can actually stick the accessory like somehow attached to the figure, whether it's a gun that goes into a holster or like that one, the arrows that actually go into his
Right.
back. As a
Yeah.
kid, I thought that was just the bee's knees.
Yeah, it was just different, you know. So many times the GI Joe figures would come with something and you couldn't put it anywhere. You know, they didn't have like a holster. Like they had a holster, but they had something already in the holster, you know, that you couldn't remove.
You could do that for Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, couldn't
Yeah,
you? Or
there were
at
a
least for Storm
couple.
Shadow.
There were a
Yeah.
couple that you
Like
could
the
do that
swords
with.
would go in, yeah.
Yeah,
But
there
for
were
the
a
most
few.
part, yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, it was just like, you know, oh, they've got these accessories on their bodies that you can't play with. At least with Green Arrow, you could use a couple of the arrows, and I thought that was really cool.
Except you cannot because you lost them.
I
But
did.
listen, we can't win them all.
Well, he became a
Sure you
wrestler
can.
from Japan. That's what his
Oh, well,
backstory was.
that's fair.
He's the Great Muda.
No,
Yeah, I
no.
literally was gonna say that.
Great minds think alike.
No, you guys don't know him. He's from Japan. You don't know him.
He's from Japan. It's too inside. It's too inside.
Too inside.
I
Well,
bet you can find like, remake deals online, like on eBay or something,
I'm sure you can,
like
yeah.
accessories.
Because this
Yeah.
figure is in relatively good shape too, you know.
No, I think
Repro.
Diallo, I think you're right. I think that is actually a pretty big market is
Yeah.
people sell the accessories of things. I remember I'm never going to sell it, but I have one of the old like 12-inch Boba Fett toys from the late, you know, the original run, you know.
Mhm.
And someone was mentioning that the individual accessory pieces like the Wookiee scalps and stuff are worth more individually than the body, like the Boba Fett, because everyone's got the toy.
Mhm.
Like Zach, no one has the freaking accessories anymore. So like selling the accessories on eBay, and I think people even like 3D print them now. But the
Yeah.
original accessories are what actually goes for buku bucks these days.
Yep.
and what would Buku Bucks be? Just as in a ballpark for
I
anyone
want
looking to steal
almost
your
three
accessories
figures.
and sell them. No.
Yeah, I'd say three figures on
Yeah.
Three figures. Okay.
Yeah, unless it's like 3D printed and you're just like, I just want, you know, and because like another market online on eBay is like, they'll print out new stickers for the
Yeah.
toys, you
Yep.
know, but
I
they're
am-
not the originals, but they're a remake of the original, so you can put them on your toy.
I'm
Mhm.
gonna start getting into that because I have the Millennium Falcon that I want to redo, and then
Refurbish.
also the Sky Striker, and there's some
Cool.
there's some stickers, especially on the Millennium Falcon that I just I have a friend, he did the whole thing. He like cleaned it all up and he just got all the pieces and everything. So I was like, it's been sitting in the closet for a long time. I'm like, I'm gonna pull that out and make it respectable. So,
Yeah.
so maybe we can make the jump to light speed,
Yeah.
the Kessel Run, 12 parsecs.
All right,
It's
Corey. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's got to be delicate work. I mean, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. Like, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of like cleaning and
Yeah.
stuff. So, but yeah, like it actually, the way after you clean it, I mean, I've seen they look like new because like they were
Yeah.
very like yellowed out.
Yeah.
But like after you do all the cleaning, it actually can like look like bright. Like I remember when I first pulled the Millennium Falcon out, it was so, bright and white and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to, get all the little pieces, I think the little, hover Jedi training thing. I think it's still in there, the little ball.
Mm.
I think that's in there, but then like the struts for the landing bay, I think there's like a piece missing and kind of that kind of stuff. So but yeah, I actually discovered that market not for the not for any of this, but it's like way back in like 2000, I started wanting to get like the Mego stuff again. And there was like websites that where people were selling not like the originals, but like they're just like, reproductions of like stuff. So it's like you can get their costumes or their shoes and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely a market out
That's
there.
Yeah, I
awesome.
imagine it's a lot easier now with 3D printing and whatnot.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, give us a before and after because that seems very
Yeah.
cool.
When I get started on it, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Dustin, any thoughts on so far? I mean, I know I still have to do mine, but any thoughts on the two that you've already seen that we've talked about?
Yes, I like the Flash and I like Green Arrow as choices. Corey, take us all the way home. With a strong with a strong. 'Cause my understanding is that your pick is from a different series.
Well, no, well, Zach and mine are series two.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Diallo's was series one.
Got
I
it.
guess none of us picked anything from series three. Although Zach, you mentioned the Holy Grail. That one, the Shazam one, is in series three. That's probably why it's a Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Um,
Along with like a sun god guy.
yeah,
I forget his name, but
Tier,
Oh,
Tire.
El Dorado? Was it? Was it El
no,
Dorado?
no, he was like kind of purple and orangish looking.
Hmm.
Anyways,
So like I said, mine I never owned like it new. I bought them just at a used toy store. But one of my favorite DC characters of all time, and literally my favorite character design of all time. And don't ask me why, because it's kind of ugly. But I loved my Red Tornado toy. Yeah, there you go. Yep. He
Oh, but that's just
has
a picture of it.
I
Oh,
don't
I
have
don't have
I don't have them
oh,
anymore.
I don't
I
have any
have
of mine.
you don't.
They've all
Oh
been lost to
no,
time.
I don't
Yeah,
think
Um,
that that's ugly. I think that's
I think
beautiful.
it's pretty
I think
cool.
it's cool.
so for realsies, my favorite color is blue, and he's red. He's red and yellow,
This
pretty
guy's
much.
ugly. This guy.
Um,
Desaad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's so my guy, so Red Tornado, he can squeeze his arms and his legs, his waist will spin around to create the Red Tornado effect and everything. But he does come with like a cloth cape, kind of like how Batman came with his cape was cloth as well. So you get soft goods with it. But yeah, as a kid, here's the thing. I didn't even know anything about Red Tornado. I never read a Red Tornado comic in my entire life, but I saw him and I'm like, he's awesome looking. And then, throughout my entire life, I read X-Men, I read Punisher and everything. But in the back of my head, I always knew that Red Tornado was my favorite character design I'd ever seen. And like up until this day, I think he's a super cool character design. Now, if you said to me he looks stupid as hell, I'd be like, I'm not gonna try to fight you on it, but I love him. I think he's hella cool. And I think it represents what I think as I've gotten older again, what I think I love about DC, it represents this boldness to it. The colors are bold, the design is bold with his, that cape with the flipped up, neck thing and everything. And there's just something that's just you can you could show him to someone who only has tertiary knowledge of Marvel and DC, and I think that they would say, "Oh, that's a DC character." Like he kind of embodies the bold design looks of DC characters. Diallo, am I? Do you think am I on to anything here? Am I off base?
I think that's accurate. Like going back to like the why I don't think the DC movies worked is because I feel like Marvel embraced the genre and the costumes for the first, like they were really the first ones that like fully embraced the costumes, and DC always felt like they were like apologizing for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like they were, and that's why it never that nothing really ever came. I mean, like how dark Man of Steel was. It's like that, I actually like that movie, but it's like it didn't capture what Superman is, right? And so yeah, so there's like a disconnect that you just kind of sense on a certain level, and that's why it doesn't resonate as much as it could, as opposed to the first Superman movie, right? So yeah, when you see like yeah, Red Tornado. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've always loved that design. Like I've always loved just looking at him. His counterparts kind of look kind of the Vision over in over Marvel. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Oh, good point. Yeah, you're right. Because there's kind of with Marvel and DC, there's always a counterpart next to
yeah,
each other. And yeah, you're
yeah,
right. I guess the Vision would be that because the Red Tornado is an android.
yeah, yeah. And most of DC's characters came first too.
Yeah.
That's
Yep. Yep.
I used to have like a list when I was a kid of like I would write down all the characters that were the same. Um, Quicksilver and the Flash, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a Marvel. DC, yeah, the DC is always like bolder, more colorful on certain levels, you know. Um,
And
More
if they made a Red
traditional.
Tornado movie, he would not look like that at all.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's why I feel like the DC movies tended to fail. And, you know,
Mhm.
and as they kind of started figuring out they you know. So
Dustin, what do you think of Red Tornado?
Very cool visually. I think it might be my favorite. I don't know much about Red Tornado as a is he a villain? Is he a
No, he's a good guy.
he's a good
Yeah.
guy?
He's
he's
a
a
he's
hero.
a yeah.
He turns his bottom half turns into a
It's a
tornado.
tornado.
Yeah, it's a good time.
That's pretty cool.
So does mine every morning.
I was gonna say he's a drink down at Cabo Wabo Cantina, and he'll turn your bottom half into a red tornado.
He's one of those ones I kind of feel like similar to Vision, and I feel like he was one of those ones he might have been introduced as a villain in the first, because I think he was created by like a mad scientist, Professor Ivo. I think I could be making all this up. It's been years since I've actually thought about any of it. But then, but pretty quickly he, was a hero, and he's stalwart hero for all those years
Because of his
since.
love for a human woman.
I don't think they had that part. They did put that in.
They're like, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah,
for
he just
DC.
was always there. But I do think I kind of feel like they did that a little bit in Young Justice. I think the cartoon, like the pretty recent cartoon. I think they might have done that, but I'm not sure. But yeah.
Zach, did you have thoughts on Red Tornado?
I mean, I owned him and I liked him. The playability was a little weak because the legs would always, or the waist would always be super like floppy. So
Loose, yeah.
yeah. So I ended up like kind of putting tape around their waist, him and Samurai and the other characters that would have that similar action. That was one of my least favorite actions for the line, but I thought he looked really cool, with his like upside down smiley face on his chest and the arrow going down. I thought he was cool looking. I wish I still had him. I don't know what happened to him.
He's gone with the wind.
And as I was looking for pictures of him on eBay, it looks like he's like in packages like $200 or something. So
yeah.
I'm like, well, I'll never own that one.
It's insane. It's insane. And it's cool that Todd McFarlane is making like reissuing these with very similar sculpts. And I had a bunch of figures that some of them were kind of lame. There was one called Orion, and he had like a weird helmet.
He's
but his
he's Darkseid's other son.
Yeah, his figure though was like, it was so bulky to have that giant thing on his head, and it didn't. All his head did was spin around. There wasn't anything on it just spun around. That was his action.
Because he doesn't really have. It's funny because he doesn't have an action. Like, what is his head? His head has nothing to do with who he is, like as a character.
I guess
they just threw something in there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, this character Golden Pharaoh was a holy grail figure. Apparently, it's really hard to get and very cool looking. Again, I loved how many of these figures came out at a time when I don't feel like they were all that popular, because this is G.I. Joe is super popular. Transformers obviously celebrated its 40th anniversary this year. So I'm just glad they still exist, and I'm glad I have a collection of them. And Diallo, you can have my Flash figure. I'll give it to you.
I will take that. Backyard.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Next time I see you, I'll give you my Flash figure.
Run back through time and grab it.
Whoa. Do you think he's earned that after this episode?
Yeah, he's like, this is my penance.
No, I mean, because I feel like you're fulfilling the exact thing that Diallo said about you early on, which is that you're just trying to, like, you don't
Please.
have to give it
Yeah,
to him.
yeah, you don't
You
you
have
don't
to give
have
it to
to.
him.
You don't
Oh,
have to
I
give
know.
it to me.
That can be
Yeah.
part of your healing to not give it.
I know, but I like to give. So
Part of your healing could be withholding love.
yeah, well,
Yes, yes, yes.
David Ullman's going, thank you guys for getting to my point, and thank you, Zach, for your therapy session.
Yes.
Dude,
All right.
you have the Dr. Fate one, right?
I do
Or
have Dr.
no?
Fate.
Yeah,
I was like,
loved
I'll take
I
that
love-
one.
No. I was just saying, like, I loved a lot. Like when we had to pick what our favorite like figures were. Like I liked so many of them. It was
Dr.
like I
yeah.
actually, yeah, Dr. Fate is just like a cool character,
Yeah,
and
Dr.
I was like
yeah.
surprising that they actually made. I think that was one of the things about that line that was like
that?
interesting was because, traditionally it was just like the Super Friends, right? So you had like that sort of like iconic 7 or 8, however many.
Yeah.
But with superpowers, you had like all these characters that were like back in the
Dr.
deep
Fate is
roster
Yeah.
of DC, and for a lot of people, it was the first time they were even seeing a lot of these.
Yeah,
So
he was
I
going to
think
be
that
my
was really
go-to.
cool.
He was going to be my go-to pick over Green Arrow, but I chose Green Arrow for the accessories. But
Yeah.
when that Black Adam movie came out and Dr. Fate was in it, it was such a disappointment because it was just like,
Yeah, I was so
no.
disappointed.
such a
Yeah,
lame. This iconic costume. You're talking about the how DC did that. X-Men did that in those X-Men movies when they come
Yeah.
out with the drab outfits, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what is this? This is an X-Men.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Incredible Hulk when they would do the TV specials, the TV movies with Daredevil
yeah,
comes out and
yeah.
he's
So
Thor,
all
and you're like,
black.
those aren't
Yeah.
that's not Daredevil and Thor. Anyways, this is iconic. He's such a cool character, and his vibe was cool, like the whole
Yeah.
font, and the font on the blister packs was neat. And I don't know. I'm glad David brought this to the table because I've been wanting to have an excuse to pull out my toys for the longest time.
What is
I
he
mean,
a
that's-
doctor
that-
of?
Oh, Fate.
He's a doctor of fate. His doctorate in fate.
He's a doctor.
He's a
in
doctor
Fate.
of fate. Yeah,
Okay.
I was
the
just gonna
Lord,
say
the
it's-
Lord of Order.
We should at some point do the counterpart to this and do the Marvel toys, at some point. So
Secret
hopefully
Wars, yeah, I have
someone
those
will
too,
suggest
so-
that to us. Yes.
Yeah, and everyone listening, look, you are in charge of this show. So you suggest a topic, we will discuss it, just like David, just like all the people that we've covered so far. And that's what I love about 80s Kids Unite. It reminds us of some of those things that we might have forgotten about and unlocks childhood trauma.
Just to summarize here. So Zach, you have a ton of them. Corey, you have none of them. Diallo, do you have any?
No, I don't have any.
No.
I had those two. I buried one. I don't even know where the Green Lantern is, and yeah, I mean, a lot of the toys that I had just were gone. Because I was from that generation where you were forced to throw stuff away, and anything
Yeah.
I tried to save, it was like a battle for years.
Yeah,
I
totally.
lost that because I
Mhm.
was always away at college or something. So
You're not playing with it, so why do you even have it? I'm like, what?
Yeah. But I reclaimed some. I've gotten the Millennium Falcon and the Sky Striker. Those were like two of my favorite all-time toys ever. So, and then I get some of the newer figures of things now.
Yeah.
That remind me. I've been, get the Migos when they come around, because that reminds me of like my heyday of collecting stuff right before Star Wars came out. But I don't have any of the originals from that.
Okay.
From that line.
I have one. It's a Green Goblin figure. It's the Pocket Heroes. Those were the first 3 3/4 figures to come out. And
Dude, I was just thinking, I literally was just thinking I had like DC versions of those.
well, they did DC.
Yeah.
They did DC, Marvel, and then there was a couple other brands that they also had the rights to at the time. And but the
Yeah.
Pocket Heroes were famous for the action poses of
Yeah,
many
they
of
were
the
kind of like
figures.
sitting or something.
Well, they
weren't
had
or-
Batman and Robin had their hands in interesting places. So or it was just Batman and Superman, I believe. By the way, Casey Kasem did the voice of Robin on the Superpowers cartoon.
Yeah.
Or Super Friends.
Oh, so Pocket Heroes was also Migo, right?
Yeah, so Migo started getting into, I think they were the first to do 3 3/4 figures because I believe those came out in the late 70s.
79.
It's
Yeah,
like
I just
late
pulled it up.
70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I
G.I.
remember
Joe
getting
hadn't come out until much later.
I remember
They also
getting a
did
couple of those.
They also did ones for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, The Greatest American Hero, and everyone's favorite. As a kid, you want toys of this, the Love Boat.
I had those, and they also did MASH as
Oh,
well.
wow.
They did MASH. I had the MASH figures. I had the Love Boat figures.
Gotta
They
get
did
that
chips.
gopher.
Chips.
Whoa.
They did chips. Eventually, or Ertl might have come out with chips, but I believe Mego had chips as well. And
Chips and Dukes of Hazzard, I think.
yeah, and then
were like,
they do
did they
that.
have a
They made the car too.
they
Yeah.
they had a Starsky and Hutch, didn't they?
Yeah,
I
they
feel like
did that, and
did.
they
Yeah.
Magnum PI and Star. Oh my gosh, all those Hardcastle and McCormick,
They
Knight
had
Rider,
all of that. They had.
Supernatural.
I got all of them.
super powers.
Supernatural.
Well, in your parents' defense, Zach, I think that moving 7 times, you do got to scale down. You can't have all your toys coming with you every time. I mean,
Fair.
it's just kind of take up space. No, I think it's terrible. I'm trying to justify it, but
I know I did
it's
too.
terrible that you only have 85% of your toy collection.
It's true.
Yeah, I marvel at that every time. Like you were just pulling all of those out now, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's like you have a TARDIS.
I know.
And it's like you have you just like keep
It
them
is
in like a
that.
pocket dimension, and you just like pull these out. Like, where do
Yeah.
these come from?
I
right?
could compartmentalize. I could really do a good job of compartmentalizing it.
Yeah. You don't actually, there's no physical, the physics of your space doesn't make any sense. You don't have any place for these toys to live.
I'm
But they just
Dr.
keep
Toy.
coming.
I'm Dr. Toy. That's my
Yes,
power.
Dr. Toy. Well, everybody, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for joining us. If you would like to be a patron and suggest a topic, as Corey mentioned, go to patreon.com/$2 late fee or patreon.com/podcasting after dark. Sign up at any level and you can suggest a topic. We'll talk about it. And yeah, guys. Well, good work. This is episode 10. So this is an achievement. We're in double digits.
Yep, we're
Happy
almost pushing a
Thanksgiving,
year.
everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to all y'all who celebrate, and for those that don't, happy day.
Yeah, like people who don't celebrate gratitude or
No,
if you've never said thank
Canada,
you.
Canada, we got a lot of Canadian listeners.
Oh,
Germany,
you're
Europe.
being
I'm being regional.
diplomatic and regional.
Wait,
yeah,
America. Everyone loves American holidays. America
The
first.
UK,
Yes.
the UK.
Happy Thanksgiving. And I'm grateful for you guys, for all you
Grateful for
Americans
you guys.
America
who
started
understand
Christmas.
what we're talking about. If you're confused on what Thanksgiving is, whenever you celebrate Thanksgiving, may it be.
America started Valentine's Day.
America started.
America created Halloween.
America created the 4th of July.
The 4th of July did not exist until we fought for putting it on the calendar. It used to go July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, then 5th.
Yes.
And freedom
Yep.
brought that to the table. It was a hard fought victory, but we won.
Well,
yeah.
It's all so depressing. Anyway, guys, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Hey,
Thanksgiving.
I'm thankful for you guys. How about that?
Thankful
I'm
for
thankful
you guys.
for you guys too.
I'm
love
thankful
our
for you guys
friendship.
for
ups and downs and all.
Yep.
We went through some stuff in the last 24 hours.
Come
We
on.
have. It's been
My
but you know what? We're
God.
stronger for it.
So it was the ship almost ended. I mean,
You're welcome for the
it was-
entertainment, everybody. You're
almost
welcome
over.
for the entertainment.
It was just so funny because as soon as you commented yesterday, I was like, in my head, I was like, Zach didn't read that. He didn't. I was like, he didn't watch that.
It happens. It happens. It's a cool chocolate milk ad. So
And Dustin, thank you for show running.
or emceeing, whatever, because the show running lives within all of us. You know what
It
I mean?
does.
Like we all.
You've got the touch.
I'm
hey,
so
we're
drunk.
getting ready. Next month is December, and we are in the midst of figuring out something special for that. So stay tuned for December's topic. And
Oh, right. December could potentially be like a million guests, right?
yeah, we might go big and live. We might. We're trying to figure that out, y'all. So stay tuned. Stay tuned to all our social medias. Patrons will hear about it first. And over on our Patreons, we've got all sorts of great stuff going on. So check us out, support the shows, support us, subscribe, like, et cetera, all that good stuff.
I liked
Here's
it better when Diallo said it.
Oh, well, fine. Merry Christmas,
Oh,
everyone.
Jesus Christ. It's Christmas already.
Sorry.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Diwali. That happened already. America created that also.